Welcome to Cinema Chop Shop. Watch, chop, retrofit.
Well, Joey was generous enough to bring us 4 giant butternut squashes, and I've made 3 meals from it so far and still have a bunch in the freezer. Delicious. I'm excited, but we have squash for days. Thanks, Joey.
But this isn't a gardening podcast. It's Cinema Chop Shop. Welcome. I'm your host, Sean, and you've heard right off the top, Allie is joining us today.
Hey.
Because Joey's not here. Joey had a family engagement that's kept him from being here, but Todd's here.
I am.
And Travis is not here. Travis dialed in about an hour before broadcast and said that he's not feeling well, so we're sad that he could not join us.
Get better, Travis.
Yep.
Do better, Travis. Yeah.
Get better,
Oh,
Travis.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. All right. Today's episode is going to be about kings. Kings in film, whether they be literal kings or figurative kings. Did you make a noise? Oh, is that like a...
The little trumpet.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Fanfare is what it's called.
There it is.
Kings. Yeah, literal or figurative kings have been featured in films going way the hell back because for some reason we're fascinated by them as leaders, whether courageous, heroic, or tragic, or fraudulent, or whatever. That they're just a nice subject matter.
It's heightened living. They have a lifestyle that's at a whole different level, at least to what peasants have been exposed to.
And oftentimes, kings are part of a monarchy. They're designated, they're chosen, they're either through family or lineage or what have you. We'll talk about a few films today that get into a few kings, literal and figurative, that kind of fit all of those categories. So we'll get there. But what inspired this episode was a YouTuber that I follow, Danny Boyd. His account is called Cinestics. And he did a series on kings, and actually was kind of leading up to it. He was talking about Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and the misdirect that Tolkien did with Theoden the king, the mad king who reclaims his throne. But that's not the real king of the storyline. The real king, of course, is Aragorn. And the point that he made in one of his videos is that in film, what makes a king is not necessarily the person playing the part of the king, but the people that surround the king. How do they react to that king? Do they recognize him as the king? Do they despise him as the king? Do they plot against him? Do they soldier for him? So a lot of the things in these films revolve around what the supporting cast does regarding the king.
So what you're basically saying is the people make the king. And whereas the audience, it's also just good storytelling, informing us of what type of king they are by the way that people react to them.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got movies where there are kings in title only, like in the Alice in Wonderland story, the King of Hearts is just a little pipsqueak, minuscule person standing next to the gigantic, larger-than-life Queen of Hearts. In Princess Bride and in the movie Gladiator, you have a king who is just the subject of contempt from his subjects. Like in Black Panther with Brian Jordan's character. Am I saying, is that the right actor? Mm-hmm. Killraven, whatever his character's name is.
Oh, I think so.
He is the doubted king. Then you've got, in the film where the Wild Things Are, or the children's book, that is a false king. He is in disguise. And that's also in a film that Joey was going to cover today, The King of Marvin Gardens, which was Jack Nicholson and...
Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern, yeah, and Ellen Burstyn's in it. And this is one of those, the king is a figurative description because it's just a small part of the Atlantic City boardwalk, and they're trying to get their little slice of the pie. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those aspirational, I want to be on top of the heap kind of things, and there's like a whole lot of factors working against that kingship.
Mm-hmm. You even have a documentary like The King of Kong about the longtime Donkey Kong scoring champion, Billy, I forget what his last name is, but he's got a whole enterprise built around him being the scoring champion, and then this little pissant middle school teacher comes along, beats his record, but then Billy sets in motion all these machinations to try to get the record stricken from the official record through these unfair means anyway, that I think that would have.
That's a great example, because the contender to the throne. I mean, that's something that we see in boxing all the time.
Yep.
The figuratively speaking, the king of the ring. The top of the heap kind of thing. And there's always somebody out to dethrone you.
Yep.
Well, and the figurative kings have risen in the era of post monarchy. We still have monarchies today, but monarchies have gotten less and less important and less in power. And when we started for centuries, the monarchy that's who set the standard, right? That's who everybody aspired to be. Once we got film, that and monarchies and those forms of government started to shift. Celebrity now became the new
the king.
That's who everybody looks to set the standard now. So then you've got the rise of the more figurative kings like this, because you don't have that monarchy standard.
Well, and in the West, at least, the king is exclusively, where it still exists, figurehead, celebrity, essentially, as you said, which is why you can poke fun at it and analyze it. And
well, Todd, you were just talking about The Godfather, the other week, and that's another figurative king of his little empire. Scarface would be another kind of example. I'm surprised none of us picked like one of these drug empire kind of movies, because modern day speaking, I mean, that is, you've got your little plot there of land, and that's what you're trying to be the top of the heap on.
Right.
So yeah, this is a rich subject, I think, that we're going to tackle today, because kings come in many forms and they have many different kinds of expressions. But we're going to kick it off with our feature segment, and that is going to be about probably the most famous king, unless you're talking about Jesus. Talking about King Arthur, the legend of King Arthur, and we decided to go for the 1981 Excalibur, directed by John Boorman, famously the director of Deliverance. It's got a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. It stars Helen Mirren, Nigel Terry, Liam Neeson, Nicole Williamson, Patrick Stewart, Gabriel Byrne, Cherie Lungi. It had a budget of $11 million. It did $35 million box office in the U.S. and Canada. I don't even have the worldwide number, so obviously it made its money back. The magical sword of Excalibur starts off in the hands of British Lord Uther Pendragon, and then years later finds its way to his bastard son Arthur, the knave destined to become king. Aided by the sorcerer Merlin, Arthur fulfills his fate by bringing together the Knights of the Round Table at Camelot and unifying the country. However, this flawed monarch faces greater tests ahead in pursuit of love, the Holy Grail, and his nation's survival.
It says knave, not squire?
It says knave.
Knave is usually... I don't know if I'd call that character a knave.
I know, right?
Based off of my usual understanding of...
Maybe it was a different definition at the time.
When it came out in the early 80s, I remember it being featured heavily on HBO, and I was very drawn to it, and I think it was because it was so shiny. It was
very, very shiny.
It looked really cool.
It was a visual feast, for sure.
It was a bit of a forbidden fruit,
visual.
though. I was not allowed to watch it as a child because of the violence and because of the nudity.
The titties.
So yeah, I did not see this film until 2 weeks ago, and so I must say that it is a visual feast. It is over the top. I think every scene could be made into a heavy metal album cover. Joey said this is like the extended cut of a Dio music video.
Right.
I want to hear your takes on it. I know Allie's been chomping at the bit all day to share with us what her take is on the film. So go for it, guys.
Well, I think in rewatching it, I think that I've actually seen it before. So there were things that felt familiar, but it clearly had been a long time, and it may have been one of those HBO shows that my sister and I would watch on Saturday mornings when we were unsupervised.
Yeah.
And the first little caveat is I'm not a big fan of the Arthurian legend in the first place.
Nor am I.
I also have problems with stories where the stakes are so high you just can't keep it in your pants. And that's my take on the Arthurian legend. I'm like, there's so much at stake. The fate of the whole country is riding on you, and you can't move on from this feeling.
But we could go back to the Greeks with the can't keep it in your pants.
Yeah.
Well,
Oedipus.
And it's a regular theme everywhere.
Yeah.
And I understand that that's like the base part of our human nature, the need to procreate that's how we survive. So it's a huge. So yes, of course it is a huge drive. But I'm like, I want the people who have higher stakes to have a higher level of
accountability,
a higher level of resistance.
And you're talking about Guinevere and Lancelot,
and
Arthur,
and Arthur, and
even Arthur's birth is through a not keeping it in your pants method.
So I'll just put a pin in that because that's not specifically addressing this film, and I think the film did a pretty decent job of taking, as we were discussing earlier, Sean, extremely huge legend and compressing it into 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the problems with the movie is that there's so much crammed into this movie, this little movie. You know, it's not a small movie, but what the sprawling legend, to compress it all into one film, there's a lot of stepping on its own toes that happens.
And
there
I'm
are
like,
a lot
what?
of subplots and things that just aren't. There's a lot of meat left on the
bone. Yeah.
What a hypocrite Lancelot turned out to be, because then he's with this little sect that's like all against the knights about how awful they are, and I'm like, you're the one who broke them, you idiot.
He kind of looked like a cult leader.
He
in that
was,
and
that's
scene.
that's an
That's
element
why I
I
said
would
a
have loved to
sect.
have known more about.
Yeah.
We just find out about that.
What
when,
happened to Lancelot when he left. But
Yep.
but this film in general, I appreciate the attention to the supernatural elements. I thought that was kind of interesting how they played with that. I do have a costume design background. I did have some issues. I thought there were some really interesting period touches that they had, but then there were some things that were so deeply anachronistic that it was hard for me to connect. It's not that I have a problem with anachronisms, it's just that make it consistent across everything. Don't have really great period armor, except for the shiny ones, and then have really weird cutout leather and big sparkly fabric that didn't exist.
Well, there's a lot of design in this film that kind of echoes the dying days of disco.
Yes.
There's so much shiny armor, and the castle itself with the shiny,
the big shiny
reflective stone, is it supposed to be? That I found to be totally glam.
Yeah.
And that was even underscored further by the lighting, which also the big thematic thread that goes through the whole film is this strangely supernatural green reflective lighting that happens all throughout the movie, and it's a design choice, and it looks cool.
Yeah.
But when you stop and think about it, it's like, why is everything glowing green? It's so strange.
And it certainly was not awful costume design wise. I just felt it could have, again, we were discussing something else. I think it could have committed farther one way or another. I really did enjoy the little medieval show that was in the little town at the beginning. I'm like, oh, look, it's medieval wagons. Mm-hmm. It helped my little theater history heart.
One of the things that struck me as strange about the movie is fucking in plate armor. Mm-hmm. Thought that was kind of a risky move there. Somebody could have gotten something severed.
Well, and that's why I was like, okay, you have to work really hard to get this off. You have plenty of time to retract and change your mind.
Yeah.
This is not a quickie in the corner.
Yep. Well, one thing I did appreciate about how they used, in my opinion, it was sort of subtly pointed out, the absurdity of the armor that they would wear, because the fight scenes were all very clumsy. Everyone's like struggling to get their sword up, and it's like a race to see who can get the sword over their head first, and they're stumbling around because of the big, heavy, awkward gear that they have on. And so I liked that the fight scenes were not glamorized at all. They were brutal, and they were clumsy.
They were kind of ugly, and like you said, if you could get somebody like beaten down onto the ground, which we saw a couple of times, then you have the upper hand. You know, that's when the spears come out and other things to start really going at somebody.
Yep, sweep the leg. That seemed to be the ethos that would work best.
Knock them off the horse, sweep the leg.
Yeah.
And find the joints. It was a little weird how many things would actually pierce that armor. It really would have gone in between the plates. But anyway, sorry, being pedantic again.
Well, this is definitely not the movie you want to be pedantic about, because there were so many liberties taken. But then, you know, I as we were watching it, I kind of peeked in on the back half of it when Allie was watching it today. You know, I said that, you know, this is a legend. it's not real. So there are some things that you kind of have to take with a grain of salt and accept the larger than life aspect of it.
And I do, so talking specifically about the depiction of Arthur, I do like Borman's, and it's been a long time since I've read the primary sources of some of the Arthurian legend, although, I mean, I guess a lot of it was oral tradition, so there are a lot of different versions. But I did like, if you really think about it, there's nothing particularly remarkable about Arthur. The way that he comes into being is through deceit, through a bargain that Merlin makes with Urethra or whatever his name is. Uther, yeah. Who sleeps with through magical deceit Arthur's mother, and then Merlin takes possession of him, and then Arthur pulling Excalibur out to become king is very anticlimactic. It's just like he just goes in. I don't know. There's nothing really remarkable about that. And then his skills as a ruler. There's nothing really that sets him apart. He's not a particularly good fighter. The only reason why Lancelot doesn't defeat him is because at the last second, Arthur invokes Excalibur to win the fight for him. He's getting his ass kicked. So he's not like a great fighter. There's nothing strategic that he does that's particularly remarkable. He hooks up with Guinevere, even though Merlin tells him explicitly that she is going to betray you. I like that he's just an eminently flawed character. He's not unlikable. He's not like somebody that you dislike per se, but there's nothing about him as depicted in this film that really stands out.
Well, and I think that's why the legend has endured so long. There's always that every man want to make good thing that we have inside of us. So I think that's one of the things that's appealing about it. I think that probably Arthur's greatest strength as well as greatest flaw is his naivete. Right? He and I think that's also what makes him a good leader, which he is when he's in good standing and he's healthy. The land is healthy, and I think that metaphor is really,
I was
really
just about
special.
to mention that. He does have his peaks and valleys throughout the movie, where he just completely gets worn down and beaten down, and then rallies in the end.
And empathy, I guess, is part of that characteristic that he has as well, being able to,
But it's a lack of individual confidence. It is that imbued by an external force confidence.
I think Arthur and Lancelot in this movie are depicted like the original emos. They both really kind of hit the feels a lot.
They do get the feels a lot. Lancelot does try to stuff his down until he doesn't.
I do want to take a second to shout out Helen Mirren in this movie.
Absolutely.
As Morgana. That was, and I thought that her character really didn't get as much development as I would have liked.
Yeah, it didn't, and her costumes were fantastic. She was the cool.
Most anachronistic, but she as the character
she looked awesome,
was the most. Well, her character, and I think that's what the designer is trying to do. Her character is the most separated from this world.
Yeah.
That world of
and Merlin with his little metal headpiece.
Yeah, that's weird.
I thought it was cool looking, kind of a Ming the Merciless kind of deal.
Morgana's a very interesting character with a lot more depth than we are able to get in this film because there's just not time for that development, and that wasn't the focus of this particular telling.
Great little performances from Patrick Stewart, playing a very manly role for him, not the gentleman that we're used to seeing, but kind of burly, almost, which is not typically something I would associate with him. Liam Neeson, of course, was
Gawain,
good in this.
So they're just like standing there, and I'm like, it looks like Liam Neeson, but I'm sure it's not him. And then I see him in the credits. I'm like, damn, I was right.
Yep.
What's
and
funny,
of course, that character too is a perfect example. Like Sir Gawain probably has the most famous of the Arthurian legend stories that still exists in its original form with the poem.
And Liam looks about like he in 81 looks exactly like he did in Star Wars Episode 1 in like 1999. Like the man's age did not change during the 20-year span, give or take.
I think another thing with Arthur from his flaws as the king is there's this interesting thing where he's a little too beholden to tradition. For example, he won't champion his wife, which probably would have stopped her from going over to Lancelot. because that's not what the king is supposed to do, which
Yeah.
is an interesting thing. And I wonder if that comes from the lack of confidence because of his origins. He got resistance initially because he was a bastard. And so I forget the knight's name that initially he had to win over by kicking his ass, but at the beginning of the film, and there always seemed to be that little bit of lack of confidence there. And to make up for it, he's like, well, I'm going to do things the way they're supposed to be done. I'm going to follow the tradition.
Or is that the weight of the external supernatural mantle that's been put on him, and he has to live up to it?
Yep.
So right,
What
you
part
know,
of it,
there
yeah.
it could be either one of those.
Sure. Combination. Right. But
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting too.
And I think they played with that some.
Yeah.
You know, to make us sit back and say, well, which is this? You know, and I think it's also there is this idea. Arthur is the ideal king. I think with the legend that he's chosen. He's of the people. It's the authority's been thrust on him, so he's supremely just.
Yep.
Right. So,
Well, it's in contrast to his son/brother, who, being raised to think that he's superior to everyone else,
Yeah.
does not have
Oh,
the qualities
Mordred.
of Mordred,
Yeah.
who another underdeveloped character, but who does not have the qualities of his father, in part because he has a sense of entitlement that Arthur does not have because of his more humble.
And visually contrasted by his gold armor. You know.
Yep, and he's just a tall blonde guy.
Yeah.
I want to touch for just a moment on Morgana's transformation at the end. She's like what, 6-7 years older
They
than Arthur?
they made her look way older than she
Like,
would have been.
And I
but
mean, I
yeah.
guess the idea is that there was just the kind of the evilness.
it's all the dark magic she
dark
was
magic
doing
came
that it
out,
acted
but it
on
was
her.
Yes.
just like what? She's like 7 years older than him, and she's this decrepit hag. So horrific that her son
Strangled
kills
her
her
to
on
death, yeah.
sight.
Yeah.
Little mean. They were mean to her. Shout out to Carmina Burana, the music. that
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah. I guess it was a combination. It wasn't all original music, right? Some of it was.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
They
But
used some-
great though.
The music was good. It was fitting for that that almost operatic look to the film. The design of the film was just so over the top. I liked it. I think it was perfect for the
Yep.
time in 1981 when that came out. It again, I mentioned the remnants of disco. It really hits those shiny chrome notes.
It hits me the same way Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor does. Mm-hmm. As far as like the disco visuals in this period.
But then you do have the very dark gothic when they go to search for the Holy Grail, and one of my favorite images or disturbing images is the tree
the
where all
tree
the
of
knights
knights.
are hanging from the tree, and Percival just gets lucky that the spurs keep him from getting
Was it
hung.
luck or was it fate?
Was it
Tom?
correct? Right. Yes.
I always thought Percival was probably the purest character out of
Yeah.
the whole legend. So
It's almost like he's like a parallel to Arthur.
yeah,
Like,
okay.
Percival could have been Arthur. It feels like because he's in the woods, comes upon Lancelot,
Yep.
serves him.
And he won't get on the horse. He's like, Lancelot's like, well, it's going to take 20 days to get there. No, I'll run beside you. Anyway.
So that humility.
And then he
aspect.
offers to be the champion when Lancelot doesn't show up on time. And,
Knowing he would get his ass kicked
Yep.
unless fate intervened.
Yes. He had no armor. But,
No, or skills.
Right.
So 73% Rotten Tomato film. Again, it's problematic because of the amount of stuff that they
Yep.
try to cover.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I enjoy the movie. I
liked it quite a bit. Messy, but
I mean, I'm not mad
imperfect,
that I
but-
watched it.
Travis told me that this is Brian Fisher's favorite film.
Oh, that tracks.
I never heard Brian mention it though, so I don't know if that's true. But it doesn't surprise me that he would like it.
I mean, I think 73 is right there. I think it is well done. I think it's a for the time it was probably a newer take, just in how much of the supernatural they were really focusing on. Right? I don't know about newer, but so it was its own interpretation, and I'm not sure that there was a film that attempted to cover so much of the legend at once before this film. So I feel like if you didn't
It was
know anything
ambitious.
about, yeah, it was very ambitious,
Yep.
and if you knew nothing about the legend, I think you could see this film and get intrigued to look deeper.
Yeah. This seems like ripe for like an HBO, limited series because
Yeah.
I mean they could do
Yeah.
it if you want to do a thorough job, give it about 10 episodes and
Well,
you
there
know.
has been a Camelot series in recent years.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that right? Okay.
I
And
think it was called Camelot.
I think it was Camelot, but I think it could very well have been at the beginning, or maybe even just before the whole Game of Thrones thing.
Okay.
So now it's like the bar is set pretty high to put together a series based on Arthur and Camelot, but
Morgan Le Fay gotten her own treatment. I feel like there's been a Morgan Le
I don't
Fay
know.
movie.
look that up. I don't know.
Well, with the we've got a lot of, like with Wicked and things like that. It seems like
Oh,
we're-
yeah, yeah.
we're in a time period where you could have a treatment of a villain. In
The held from the other point of view. I think that's possible, and that would actually work because she kind of got done wrong in her early years, so her thirst for vengeance and power was understandable to a degree.
Apparently, as a child, she had a vision of her father as he died. So, I mean, what does that do to you?
Messes you up. All right, Excalibur. Recommend it for those who have not seen it. It's interesting. It's fun. It's got good violence. John Borman's good at directing violence. That's what he does well. So worth a look. And we'll come back to King Arthur in the second half.
Yes. A much different take.
Yep.
And I would recommend it. It's not, but just go in knowing that it's a broad scope and it's of a time. I'm not seeing necessarily a Morgan Le Fay movie, but there's the Girl Slaves of Morgan Le Fay.
I don't think that's what you.
1971.
That's not what you think it is, I'm afraid. All right, that seems like a good time to take a break and stop for intermission. We'll come back with all of our individual picks, but not before we say, let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves some
Pop Rocks.
Kingfish.
Shepherd's pie?
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. We promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go.
And we're back. Todd peed in the yard. Allie did not.
I did not.
I went and grabbed some mail off of the front porch. So now we're ready to go with our second half. These are our individual picks. Already mentioned that Joey was going to do The King of Marvin Gardens, which I watched, and you've watched too, have you not?
I have,
Okay.
yes.
I thought it was okay.
I wasn't a huge fan. It was all right. I was a little disappointed, but
I think Ellen Burstyn was really good. Terrifyingly good.
yeah.
I made a joke that I think that was just the prequel to Requiem for a Dream. She's playing the same character. And then I think Travis was going to do King Ralph. So we will not get to hear those recaps. But what we will get to hear is Allie's pick. What you got?
So I did the 1973 animated Robin Hood. It was directed by Wolfgang Reitherman.
I always thought Wolfgang was a great name. Kind of, yeah.
All right, so it was based on just the legend of Robin Hood, of course. The release date was November 8th, 1973. It's 83 minutes. The budget was $5 million, and the box office was $33 million. So the thing about Walt Disney wanted to do an adaptation of a story called Reynard the Fox after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it didn't come to fruition. So when they decided to Robin Hood, they brought in elements of Reynard the Fox, and that's why he's a fox, right? So this is the first post-Walt animated feature and the first with an entirely non-human cast. So it's all anthropomorphic characters. The reason why I wanted to talk about this one is when Sean first said something about movies about kings, I thought of this because the depiction of King John. Oftentimes when we think of Robin Hood, we think of the foil of the Sheriff of Nottingham, because I think a lot of our more recent movies really focus on that relationship, but this one really is all about King John and his pettiness. And Robin Hood, at the heart of it is a sociopath who is Robin Hood. Yes, he's channeled it in a very altruistic way, but he is a sociopath. And the narcissist that is King John. So King John was based on an actual king. Robin Hood is not really where that legend came from. It's kind of like King Arthur. This is something that's kind of feels canon to history, but it's a legend. But King John was a real king. He was kind of filling in for his brother, King Richard the Lionheart. Now, the funny thing about the two of those kings is King John is depicted as this really horrible king who drained the country with taxes to serve a lot of selfish needs because he wanted to live a very
Cannot relate
lifestyle.
to that whatsoever.
But King Richard the Lionheart also drained the coffers of the country because he was funding the Crusades, which he was away on the whole time, which allowed John to be in the seat in the first place. So I do think it's kind of fascinating that he's shown as this, beautiful, benevolent king because he was on a noble mission. But really, the two of them used the country for their own good.
Right.
So I thought that it was interesting to how they depicted him as so weak, King John as someone so weak. And the idea of someone in that much power and in that role having these weaknesses, I think, is something that speaks to us, I think, a lot in our Western tradition, right? That the idea that, yes, we rebel against kings because they're just these useless.
They're regular people.
Yes, with all the foils within. So we talked about Arthur being regular people, but naive and noble, right? Regular people and full of their flaws and how these flaws are exploited.
And that John was voiced by Peter Ustinov from Spartacus and other films of Death on the Nile. So great voice casting.
Yeah.
So and it was really interesting to me too, because the other film that I thought about doing was Lion in Winter, which is actually about the same kings, King John and King Richard, but it's about his father, the parents, King Henry and Eleanor of Aquitaine, trying to decide who would be king. She championed Richard, he championed John, and this is what we ended up with, right? So just kind of that history going into it, which we don't see in here. I also just love that they animated a snake crossing its arms. I think that's hilarious and very well done. The animation on Hiss, the advisor, is one of my favorites because the amount of life they brought into a squiggle.
I always thought
'Cause
Maid
it's
Marian
snake.
was really sexy.
And I mean, as far as the fox goes,
she was a fox.
Robin Hood's pretty cute too. But it's a delightful cast of characters. But it was that depiction of the king as this weak, sniveling, having mommy issues, and his little slimy yes man who feeds his ego,
And his ill-fitting crown. I mean, what a
because
great...
it was his brother's crown.
What a great visual depiction of somebody who wasn't suited to be king. His crown didn't even fit.
And everything he wore didn't fit. It was all too big for him because it was all his brother's.
Yeah.
And his brother not only was larger, but he was larger than life. His legend is one he couldn't fill. So we can investigate deeper into why he had all these issues. But I just enjoyed the fact that it really was this, especially in our Western culture, especially in American culture, the idea of a king as a useless, manipulative, cruel entity, right? And then your Robin Hood character who seemingly is all about what they can do for the poor, but this film depicts him very much as this just reckless abandon. He does good things with the money he gets, but he doesn't want to keep it because he's in it for the adventure.
Yeah.
Disney originally wanted to set this in the American South.
Yes.
And we all know that Disney has a history of issues of depicting the American South. So they pulled back and set it in England. But it's interesting that half of the voice cast is English and half of the voice cast is American Southern, much the Sheriff of Nottingham being the chief among them. Very Southern. And
as well as the vulture, his little vulture crew. And then the music that goes along with it, it's folk music. Right, so and that's very much an American South tradition. So it's really fun to kind of hear that. And that was something I didn't know initially, but after learning that, it makes you see all those earmarks.
And the narrator was who again?
Roger Miller as Alan Adale, a minstrel who serves the narrator of the film. He is a rooster.
It should be noted that George Lindsay was in this also from the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh, yeah.
Goober.
Wow, really?
Was he one of the vultures?
Yes, he is. He is one of the vultures. Awesome.
So great depiction of a king who's usurping and doesn't belong in the seat he's in.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Todd, let's go back to King Arthur, shall we?
Yes, we have another decidedly different depiction of him.
And now for something completely different.
Yes. Monty Python and the Holy Grail from 1975, put together by the famous Monty Python troupe that consisted of, Terry Gilliam, Eric Idle, John Cleese, Graham Chapman, Michael Palin, Terry Jones. They were doing the Monty Python's Flying Circus, and so this was actually the first Monty Python film that they did, which was in between one of those Flying Circus seasons. Gilliam and Jones directed it. Of course, Gilliam would go on to move beyond comedy and direct a lot of classics and other genres, like one that was talked about on the episode a few weeks back, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, 12 Monkeys, Brazil, things of that nature. So in any case, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is builds off the Arthurian legend, but we see immediately that it has a very different depiction. I'll just quickly, most of you probably know the film, but I'll read a long one-sentence summary from Wiki AI. A comedic send-up of the grim circumstances of the Middle Ages as told through the story of King Arthur and framed by modern-day murder investigation. When the mythical king of the Britons leads his knights on a quest for the Holy Grail, they face a wide array of horrors, including a persistent black knight, a three-headed giant, a cadre of shrubbery challenge knights, the perilous castle Anthrax, and a killer rabbit, a house of virgins, and a handful of rude Frenchmen, which I think is a good little synopsis there. The very first scene gives us the film's attitude towards the monarchy, where we see Arthur and his squire Patsy come galloping out of come galloping into the foreground of the film, not on a horse, but pretending to.
With coconuts.
Yes, and Patsy, Arthur is miming riding a horse while Patsy cracks a couple of coconuts together. And so we see immediately the pretension of the tradition, of the emptiness behind all of that, the false sense of regality, all right at the beginning of the film. They come up to and a scene that repeats itself throughout the film. They come up to a castle in which they try to gain entry. He declares who he is. They don't know who he is.
I didn't vote for you.
Yes. They have a debate about if a sparrow could carry a coconut or not. Because a coconut, of course, is not native to the British Isles, in a very comedic scene. Finally, Arthur just has to kind of move on while the two soldiers are debating this about the sparrow. We get scenes like this all throughout the movie. So the bullshit of chivalry with the Black Knight. So the Black Knight is standing guard. He has a duty to do. He can't let anyone pass. Gets into a fight with Arthur. Arthur cuts off literally every one of his limbs, and we get the famous "'Tis only a flesh wound" scene. Finally, they move on, and the Black Knight shouting out, "Come back here! I'll, bite your ankles," and this, that, and the other. And so the bullshit of the chivalry is lampooned, of course. One of the classic scenes we come across is he comes across a few peasants who he thinks are working on a lord's manor or something like that. They turn out to be what they call anarcho-syndicalists, one of whom's name is Dennis, who not only don't recognize the authority of the king, but they don't even know that there is a king. which actually has probably some historical validity, because there were people in an era when the further away you get from the centralized government, the less you're going to have any information about it. So it's probably historically true that there were outer reaches of the British Isles or any kingdom where they wouldn't even be aware that there was a king, and they would have their own, sort of customs and that sort of thing. But in any case, they refused to kind of acknowledge his authority over them. He tells them the story about how he became king through the Excalibur. One peasant says, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for government.
It's very true.
Very, very true.
Yes. So Arthur is just kind of a bumbling guy. There's nothing particularly remarkable about him. He puts together his Knights of the Round Table along with Patsy, who also seem equally unremarkable. He kind of gets his first Benevere, I think his name was. He stumbles across this this witch burning, where they're trying to decide if this woman is actually a witch or not, and they've clearly put a fake nose on her, and they're like, oh well, witches are made of wood, so what does wood is supposed to float? Let's throw her in the lake, and then Arthur happens along this and gives his 2 cents.
And it's just it's lampooning all of these ridiculous traditions. The witch trials or the witch test, and he tries to logic them out of it, and they aren't hearing it, and then that's how he picks up one of his other knights, because he's able to figure it out, and it's like each one's like a little test, and that's how he picks up his knights. But it's just lampooning everything about the monarchy.
Well, the thing about
selection.
the movie in terms of Arthur and being a rightful king, I mean, everything in this movie is working against him, and he still has he's so headstrong that he is the rightful king of the Britons. And it speaks to this false sense of authority that a lot of leaders seem to have. As silly as it's portrayed in this movie, it's very true that I'm your leader because I said so. I'm qualified to lead you because I said so. And that's very much what this movie is about, is just pointing out that, well, no, you're just a guy who fucks up like the rest of us.
And he makes these crazy pronouncements of authority versus the reality of a situation. He comes across another castle with some Frenchmen in it who speak in an accent that's questionable of its accuracy, to say the least. But in one of these scenes, he gets feces and urine dumped on him, and they just have to retreat from the castle.
Run away!
They actually are originally going to go to Camelot and abandon it because they decide it's silly, because they break up into it's a silly place.
It's only a model.
There's also a perfect juxtaposition to Percival, this great brave guy, and Sir Robin, who is a coward, and
bravely running away.
Bravely running away, waiting for opportunities.
Doesn't he get chased down by a bard who's singing a song about how he's running away?
It's
delightful.
There's also the knights who say "neh," who are another who are also another reflection of the absurdity of some of these arbitrary rules and customs that people were expected to follow, that don't really have any real meaning behind them.
Calling back to Excalibur just for a second from the first half. There were several shots of the mountainside where you could see Camelot, and I would just go, it's only a model, because it literally looks like just a model in a matte
just
painting.
A little shiny.
Bloop.
We've got Bring Out Your Dead, right?
Yeah,
Bring Out the Dead.
So just that whole disregard for the plague.
Yes,
going on.
The callousness of the central ruling class to the plight of the people that they rule. Bring Out Your Dead. They're kind of removed. They kind of remove themselves from it. Just the whole facade of the power of the monarch, the way in which it's really the ground underneath which it's based is very flimsy when you start to kind of peel back the onion a bit. So yeah, the depiction of the monarch in this film is not one of regard. Some of it may have been a political statement, but these guys were Oxford graduated guys who probably also just like to have
thumb their nose
fun
at authority.
thumb their nose at authority. Have fun though with wordplay and stuff like that. There are scenes like that where they're just kind of having fun with the language and stuff like that. So, but just having a lark, having a piss at the notion of
It's
power
truly a
and-
classic. I think
Yeah.
we did a recast of this movie back in the day at some point.
I think you did.
Back in the olden days. Well, thank you for the Monty Python Holy
Yes.
Grail. It
It was fun to revisit it. I probably hadn't seen it in 20 years
It's
or so.
definitely the most quotable movie ever made.
Yes, I agree. And the musical version, Spamalot, I had the fortune of costuming at one point, and my greatest triumph was there was something that was going up against the Black Knight, and I made his tabard look like a red shirt Star Trek emblem because he was just going to go. He was just being thrown in to die.
Nice.
I was very pleased.
Joey
with that.
would be very glad to know that.
I think one person might have gotten it.
All right, my pick. This is from 1975, and it's a movie that I think is criminally underrated and underseen by people. It's The Man Who Would Be King. It's directed by John Huston. It's got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
It stars Sean Connery and Michael Caine. It also stars Christopher Plummer in the role of Rudyard Kipling, as you mentioned before. Shakira Caine, which I'll get into in a second, and Saeed Jeffrey. It had a budget of $8.5 million, and it eked out $11 million. So not a hugely popular movie, but it's a good one. It's based on a short story by Rudyard Kipling, as you mentioned earlier, Todd. This adventure film follows the exploits of Peachy Carnahan, played by Michael Caine, and Danny Dravot, played by Sean Connery. They're both English military officers stationed in India. This is during the era of colonialization. Tired of life as soldiers, the two travel to the isolated land of Kafiristan, which is Afghanistan, and where they're ultimately embraced by the people and revered as rulers, specifically Sean Connery. After a series of misunderstandings, the natives come to believe that Dravot is a god, but he and Carnahan can't keep up their deception forever. So the film starts out with this guy who's clearly been through the desert, and he's just weather beaten, and he's got all of these clothes garbed on him, and he shows up to Rudyard Kipling to tell him his story. So this is all predicated on a flashback. And so you have Caine and Connery, who are essentially profiteers within the military. Their goal is to make as much money for themselves as they can during their service. And so they hatched this plan that they're going to take a detour and get into Afghanistan and essentially try to dupe as many people as they can out of their gold and money. Their cleverness is shown very early on. They're accosted by some bandits at their campsite, and they toss a bullet into the fire to create a distraction, and they manage to end up stealing the horses of the bandits. So they're clearly very much adept at doing this double dealing that they're about to endeavor to do. So they're talking about Afghanistan, and they mention Alexander the Great and how he kind of took over that area, and they said famously, if a Greek can do it, then we can do it. They make a deal also that they're not going to sleep with any women until they reach their final goal of making as much money as they possibly can. They shake on it. They forged this kind of agreement. So they kind of one by one encounter these little villages, very small, isolated, remote villages, and they get attacked after they kind of get one of the villages to come with them, and they go to the next neighboring village to try to essentially it's like a snowball effect. They want to just conquer as many as they can and pick up as many soldiers as they can. Connery takes an arrow to the chest, but he's wearing such thick garments that it doesn't even hurt him. And because he did not die, Saeed Jeffrey plays a character that is kind of like their hype man. And he's like, he didn't die. He's clearly a god. And so they regard him as this godlike figure because he didn't die. And they get to this monastery where there are tons of riches and all these monks are around. And they do this investigation of Connery, and they rip open his shirt. And he's wearing his Freemason's necklace, his medallion. And when they see that, they know that he truly is the son of Sikander, Alexander the Great. They open up this giant ceremonial urn and pull out this. It's the same Freemason symbol on this thing, and so clearly he is a god. And so he takes up the role of king of all of these people in Afghanistan, and he holds court and he hears their cases just like a true king would. And he becomes enamored of one of the village girls who shows up to give their tributes, and he's clearly got the hots for her. And Michael Caine's like, no, you're not supposed to do that, but he decides to break their agreement, thinks with his dick, and forces
There they go again.
I know. Forces this girl to marry him. Well, when they're giving their vows or what have you, she lunges at him and bites him on the face. And Sean Connery starts to bleed. And the monks realize that you're just a man. You are no god. You've been deceiving us this whole time. And so they essentially run them out of the village in pursuit. Like, they're going to kill him. And in the process, all of these riches that they've accumulated literally go tumbling down the side of a mountain. Connery... They force him out onto this giant rope bridge. And this is what's ironic about this. So they make him go all the way out to this rope bridge, and then they cut the bridge, and he falls to his death. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom style. Which, funny enough, Sean Connery plays the father of Indiana Jones.
Right,
so I was like, oh, that's neat. As with a lot of kings, hubris did him in the end. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the film ends with them circling back to it's Michael Caine's character, who's been run out, and he's been struggling through the desert the whole time, trying to get back to civilization. And now he's telling his story to Rudyard Kipling. It's a great movie. I recommend anybody watch it. It's lighthearted and funny, but it is very true in its DNA in terms of how hubris will kill anybody who stops looking over their shoulder any second. So I mentioned Shakira Cain. She is the wife of Michael Caine. She was formerly Miss Guyana. Michael Caine saw her in a TV commercial in 1971.
I've heard this story, yeah.
On a Maxwell House coffee commercial, and he declared to whoever was with him at the time, "That is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. That is the most beautiful woman in the world." 1 year later, he discovers she lives mere minutes away from where he lives in London. Finds her, meets her, marries her, has a baby, still married to her to this day, and cast her in this movie. And yes, I can...
It's just like our love story.
Yeah, just like us. I can attest, she is very beautiful, but I thought it was interesting because I was like, Shakira Cain, what a strange name for this lady. And then I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, they're still happily married to this day.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
I'd read that or
So good for
seen
them.
that story somewhere, but yeah.
But yes, The Man Who Would Be King, I definitely recommend it. It speaks to the false kings that we mentioned,
Yep.
the ones who don't deserve to be king but have somehow rigged the system in their favor.
Well, and had the mantle put on them and took advantage.
Well, they
You
were.
see that over and
he
over.
was seeking it out. I mean, they definitely were being duplicitous in their ways to get to this high, lofty position.
But the people still had to give him that position.
Yeah. But again, it was all through deception. So
Yep.
Yep.
ultimately, the Jenga tower just couldn't hold. But definitely check that one out.
Yep.
All right.
I did not mention that I 1000% would recommend Robin Hood, the animated.
Oh, I didn't get that impression from you. Thanks for clearing the air on that one.
In case anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
And of course, we all did not like Monty Python's Holy
No,
Grail.
not at all. I miss hand-drawn animation.
All right, that's it. Those are kings. Hooray!
Hooray!
No kings. I meant to mention at the head. This would have been a very timely episode during the No Kings demonstrations.
Yep.
But oh well.
Couldn't get our shit together.
Late to the party. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you, Allie, for jumping into the episode.
You're welcome. We're not going to do plugs.
Well, I mean, we can. You got a plug?
Well, I'm going to plug Aragorn as a king that was yielded a magical sword way better than King Arthur.
Yep.
And I also want to plug Dropout TV's Smarty Pants, particularly the latest episode where Courtney declares Grease 2 the best movie of all time. Thank you.
And
no questions.
And I'm going to recommend a metaphorical king, The Return of King of the Hill, which I marathoned the 10 available episodes on Hulu with my daughter last night, and it is a very timely return as Hank Hill deals with woke and craft beer. Dale has a Substack in which he discusses false flag operations. Bobby is a 21-year-old running a German fusion restaurant and trying to win back Connie, who is in an E&M relationship.
Okay.
So it's a very timely, the perfect show to bring back now.
Good.
I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Mike Judge is one of the great creators of our time, and
Agreed.
he's underrated. I don't really have any plugs, except maybe check out Criterion Channel if you've not. They have a soundtrack category, 90s soundtrack category right now. Some great movies. You'll really nod your head to all of the music that's in the trailer promoting it.
And also some not great movies, but great soundtracks.
Yeah, well, that's fine. You don't have to be a great movie to have a great soundtrack. All right, that's it. We're going to be gone for a couple of weeks. I think we may or may not be back in 2. We don't know what the episode is, but we got some good stuff planned.
I'll be back when we do Queens.
We might come back to this. Yeah, I think that it probably needs to be done. We'll do Bohemian Rhapsody as one of the... No, I'm sorry. Different Queens.
Different Queens.
Gotcha. We are Cinema Chop Shop on all forms of social media except for YouTube and Blue Sky, which we are Cinema Chop Shop Podcast. Please rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. In the meantime, love your neighbor, love your friends, do kind things for people, and tell folks that you love them. And also, please remember to watch, shop, retrofit.